Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. What I'm going to do today is to speak to you 40 minutes or so, and then we can have questions. Okay, if you do have, then we can have some discussion. As the Buddhist Society has already publicized on its website, the topic today is what is Buddhism, the life of the Buddha. So we are going to talk about Buddhism. We are going to introduce Buddhism through the life of the Buddha. Of course, the Buddha's life can be discussed from various point of views. But today, I'm going to be talking about the Buddha's human life and human effort. Human life and human effort. This will be my focus today. And I'm going to be focusing on the Buddha's life as a Prince Siddhartha, and also after his enlightenment as the Buddha Gautama. As we all know, we can study life of the Buddha, as I had just mentioned, from various point of view. Something general, something like this. From Karen Armstrong, this is a New York bestseller, and that's quite general. But you also have something in a more storytelling way, but something that would encompass the whole teaching as well as the life of the Buddha. Taking the background of society, social economic situation at that time as a framework. For that one, you will have seen this book, All Paths, White Cloud. This is by the venerable, the most venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen master. Of course, we also have something for people who would like to study life of the Buddha in his own word. That is canonical, okay, canonical and through canonical literature. So if you are interested in that kind of approach, this book, The Life of the Buddha, okay, by Venerable Nyana Moli, sadly he is no more with us. He passed away long ago. But this is a very good book. Translation from canonical, the presentation is also clear. Not long ago, Venerable Analayo, okay, a German Buddhist monk, who is professor at Hamburg University now, has written, has written Life of the Buddha from a meditator's point of view. So obviously, he focuses on the Buddha's meditation practices throughout his life, before and after he became Buddha. So there are many out there to study about Buddhism. Even a BBC documentary, there's a series, Genius of the World. You have Socrates and you have Buddhas, you have Jesus, like that. So you have that kind of thing. So I'm just mentioning resources about the life of the Buddha. Okay. Having introduced you to those, briefly to those literatures and resources, as we all know, the hallmark of Buddhism is that is founded being a human being, never refer anything. Okay, no references to outside human world or human experiences. That is to say, the Buddha, okay, he was born as a human being. He lived a human life. He went through ups and downs of human life. And when he was looking for an answer, maybe at the beginning he was looking for something else, not totally focused on human experiences, because he was open to all the well-known teacher, famous teacher of his time. He had open mind, okay. Open-minded, he approached them one by one. He studied honestly their teaching. He practiced genuinely, diligently. And all of those teachers, they recognized that he did very well as their students. Some of them said, okay, you are now equal to us. With this, I'm referring to Alalakarama and Udakarama Buddha, the two famous meditation teachers in India at the time. So, Prince Siddhartha, as it was known, before he became the Buddha, he, with open mind, he approached all those traditions. Okay, before we talk about his quest for an answer to human suffering, we can go back a little bit to his childhood. As we all know, he was born in a place which is now in Nepal, but quite close to the Indian border. Is called Lumbini. Lumbini is the old name that came down from that time. Lumbini as a park, as a beautiful park, was situated between two kingdoms, the kingdom of his father and also the kingdom of his mother, where his mother came from, because his mother also came from a royal family. Before she became queen, she was a princess, put it that way. So, We are told that his mother, Queen Mahamaya, wanted to give birth to him, Prince Siddhartha, who would become Buddha. At her palace, at her parents' palace. So she was traveling to her parents' home called Korea Kingdom. But she didn't get there. So on the way in the Lumbini Park, the baby, a small prince, Prince Siddhartha, was born. Until recently, about 6 or 7 years ago, there was no evidence, archaeological evidence of this. What we had was, until then, just the traditional account that the Buddha was born at Lumbini. But thanks to the UNESCO effort, UNESCO funded an archaeologist team led by Professor Robin Cunningham from Durham University in England. So they discovered something, an evidence, archaeological evidence. I won't go into detail now because it's in Cambridge University's archaeological handbook. Okay, it has been updated into that. I haven't seen that, but when it was being updated, the author, Professor Robin Cunningham told me, because we had a conference in Nepal, in Lumbini, in 2014 on this subject. So archaeologically, we can say now the Buddha was born in the 6th century BC in Lumbini. There is evidence now, not just literally evidence, but also archaeological one. Of course, we have to expect that the Buddha grew up in comfort, in luxury, because his father was a ruler. We don't know the status of his father exactly, whether he was a king or a chieftain or the head of a tribe. We don't really know. Because in India, the word Raja is used in many levels. So just say, King Siddhartha, his father was king. But obviously, Prince Siddhartha was afforded all the luxuries because his father didn't want him to choose anything else other than succeeding him as a ruler. We are told that at the beginning, of course, in India, even today, astrology is very famous. People still follow astrology. So those days, as soon as Prince Siddhartha was born, we are told that wise men were consulted, and some of them said he would become a great ruler, not just for his kingdom, but also other kingdom. They call the universal monarch, universal monarch. If he chose not to succeed his father, he would become a universal recognized enlightened teacher, that is Buddha. So the second prediction didn't please his father. So his father, King Suddhodana, did everything so that his son wouldn't see anything upsetting. We are told that old people, sick people, ugly people, all of them, they were banished from his sight. So the Prince Siddhartha, as we would expect of someone who is spiritually mature, was very intelligent and also very kind. Being intelligent and being kind are the two characteristics that we can see in his early life. Intelligent in terms of going through the syllabuses of the school, and in terms of learning arts and crafts. Also intelligent, maybe we can say in today's term, emotional intelligence, EQ, because he was sensitive to other people's pain and joy. So in that, emotional intelligence, and he was kind. Kindness was his strong character. Very often we are told that what I'm going to tell you is not available in Theravada sources. Okay, him and his cousin, one of his cousin princes, were playing, but his cousin prince was cruel compared with him. And he would also become a monk later, and would do something detrimental towards other people's practices. And his name was Prince Devadatta. We are told that one day Prince Devadatta, he saw a swan and he just shot at the swan, and the swan got injured, fell down. When Prince Siddhartha saw that, he ran straight away to the injured bird, and he got there first. He grabbed the bird, he pulled out the arrow, and he used some of the leaves, okay, to nurse the injured swan. In no time, Prince Devadatta, who shot down the swan, also arrived at the scene and said, "Give it back to me, I shot it. It's mine." Prince Siddhartha was adamant that the bird should not be given to his cousin. "No, you can't have it. It's mine. Because I reached here first, I got it." And they couldn't agree with one another. So in the end, they agree to go to a court and recognize the decision of the court to whom this injured swan should belong. We are told that the decision was given in favor of Prince Siddhartha because the swan was still alive and he was trying to save it. Prince Devadatta was trying to destroy it. So life belongs to someone who tries to preserve it, protect it, cares about it, not to someone who tries to destroy it, harm it. So there was the story that we learned. So this is to show that in his early life, naturally he was kind and he would stand up to the people who suffer, to the unfortunate people. This is, I think, this is to say that he was more in tune with people's problem and suffering, misfortune. He must have been very sensitive towards that kind of thing. So over time, he was married and he also had a son. What is interesting, and we have to repeat every time we talk about the life of the Buddha, is what prompted him to leave his princely life, to give up everything and embrace uncertainty, an uncertain life. Compare with him, okay, being a Buddhist monk in modern life, in the 21st century, like myself, is very comfortable. But 2,600 years ago, for a prince to leave everything behind, the life of comfort, the life of security, and to become somebody who totally depended on other people for his food, for his clothes, for his shelter. You don't do this without maybe 120% determination. And what prompted him? Okay, what triggered this strong determination was the 4 signs that we tell, okay, all the time whenever we talk about life of the Buddha in Theravada, in Mahayana, you know, we talk about this. The first of the 4 signs is old people. Of course, in his palace, in his sight, his father ensured for nearly 3 decades that old people would not be in the sight of his son. So his son was not, Prince Siddhartha was not familiar with the sight of an old man. It was possible to do that those days because we didn't have Zoom, we didn't have internet, we didn't have Facebook, Twitter. Nowadays, you can't do that. You can't prevent your kids, okay, from witnessing old people, sick people. So old people is one sign. He saw old people, and then sick people, a patient who was mourning because he was so much in pain. That a dead body, somebody, okay, who was lifeless, couldn't breathe, couldn't talk anymore, couldn't move, and his relatives are crying, taking him to somewhere. Maybe Prince Siddhartha didn't know that they were taking that, the remains of that person, that dead body, to a cemetery. So seeing those 3 signs shocked him. I want you to consider here, for us, okay, we see such things all the time. For people who are doctors and nurses, even more so. But we see it only with our naked eyes. We don't see it with our spiritual eye. Or shall I say, we don't see it with, we don't see it through emotional intelligence. When I say emotional intelligence here, I mean empathy. To feel the pain of those people. So Prince Siddhartha, when he saw an old man, straight away he got shocked, and what's happening here? And his driver explained him in a very simple term. Any of us, okay, would be able to tell him, to explain him. This is called an old man, an old person. Every one of us, including you and me, your parents, everyone will become like this. That life is like a one-way journey. In terms of motor car, there's no reverse gear. There's only one way. From youth to old age. From birth to death. From a healthy body to a frail and sickly body. When he saw that and he got that explanation, that was enough for him, okay, to make a big decision. Those signs, okay, I have spoken only 3 now. The last one is to see a monk meditating. So he looked peaceful. Naturally, he chose that part. Here, I like to tell you the Thai forest meditation master, Ajahn Chah, the Venerable Ajahn Chah, he said, even somebody as intelligent and mature as Prince Siddhartha needed to see someone else, needed to see a model to make a decision to renounce his princely life and to pursue, okay, seriously, diligently, an answer to human pain. So old age, getting sick, and finally to die. These are the experiences that we all face. It doesn't matter if we believe in anything, if we believe in the Buddha, in Jesus, in other religious tradition, or none at all. No. These are the reality that we face. For the Buddha, or for Prince Siddhartha, before he became Buddha, what was interesting to me is that he just took that data, that fact, old age, sickness, and death, as they are, and he didn't interpret them. He didn't say that, okay, there was because of the creator Brahma's wish, or because the creator has created a human being this way. He didn't interpret those experiences. He just observed, accepted those painful experiences. And when he saw that the whole world is in this together, that triggered his compassion. Not that he didn't love his family, not that he didn't love his kingdom, but because he was overwhelmed by by the pain, or to use his own word, by the suffering that humanity faced. He wanted to do something. He wanted to do something for his family and also for the people he didn't know. That is humanity. Those three experiences were enough to connect him with humanity, with common humanity. Whenever we have negative emotion, whenever we get upset, whenever we repeat negative emotion, whenever we personalize an incident in our life, that was because we think our pain is unique. We couldn't connect with the whole humanity through that particular experience. But for Prince Siddhartha, when he saw those three uncomfortable experiences, he was intelligent enough to come to conclusion that this is a kind of, to use the word that we are so familiar today, pandemic. This is a pandemic that everybody faces. Everyone is in danger of this. I think that compassion was strong enough to maintain his determination. He was in search of meditation practices and way to cope with human suffering. You know, for 6 years, he had ups and downs. Sometimes he learned very quickly, but then he knew straight away that wasn't what he was looking for. So he moved on. Very often I think about this, because as a Buddhist monk, okay, whenever we go around to collect alms from people, you know, you have a lot of anxiety at the beginning. We don't really know if we would have enough, if we would get enough food. We don't really know. So we are faced with uncertainty every day. And we are taught how to watch our emotional reaction. But here, in many places where Buddhism is very established, well established, going for alms to collect food just for yourself is not a problem. That said, we still have a lot of anxiety. So we use this anxiety as a meditation object. We face an uncertainty. We accept it. We accept it as Buddhist monks. As lay people, you don't really want to think about anything uncertain. Okay, your lunch, your supper, your breakfast, you would know what you're going to eat for a week. You would have a menu. That's not the life of a Buddhist monk. Okay, we rely on the generosity of the people. So that was what Prince Siddhartha decided to take. For him, because of his compassion, his strong determination, he wouldn't see that as a trouble. He wouldn't be bothered about that, because we never saw any complaint, on record in the Buddhist scriptures. He was just talking about his practices. But the practices, some of them, like asceticism, for example, that nearly cost his life. He starved himself according to the practices, but that didn't bring him enlightenment. So through his own experience, he gave it up. Here, what we have got is that Prince Siddhartha or the Buddha Gautama always insisted on personal experience. Just to hear people say something about the truth, that wouldn't satisfy him unless he experienced it and verified it. So the story of his 6 years in search of truth is about learning from other people, verifying them, and then, saying goodbye to those teachers. The last one, as we all know, when he gave up asceticism, because he was practicing asceticism more than other people, he was doing a lot stricter than other people. And he had 5 friends, the people who were connected to him, through his father, either as the minister of his father or the sons of some of the ministers of his father. They really believed that he would become enlightened. So they follow him. Some of them actually left their job much earlier than him. So when he was doing asceticism, they were with him. They were also practicing asceticism. May not be as severe as he was doing, but they were also doing asceticism. But by the time he became sure that that particular practice wouldn't lead him anywhere, he stopped. This is my favorite point in the life of the Buddha, I would tell you. My favorite, because the 5 ascetics, the 5 friends, they were so disappointed with him. Wow, we gave up everything for you. And we had high hope. We thought you would make it. Now you give it up and you're going to return to a luxurious life. I think they must have said a lot more than this, because they were so disappointed. And we could even use the word, they were bitter. So they left him. They went away. So if you have been to Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha meditated and became enlightened, Bodh Gaya, and from there, those 5 ascetics, they fled. I use the word fled. They fled him to Varanasi. Today, with a nice highway and motor car, you drive 6 hours. Those days, it must have taken at least 10 days to walk. Six people, okay, in the group. Now 5 people are saying that you're no good. You are disappointing. And they, in terms of democracy, they all voted against it. That is to say, the whole group is saying, okay, you're doing something wrong, your decision is wrong. They criticized him bitterly and left him. My favorite point is that the way the ascetic Gautama, who would become Buddha, reacted to or responded to the behavior of his friends. He just thought, okay, they don't know that this practice would lead us to nowhere. I have verified it myself, so I have no regret in giving it up. I give this practice, this ascetic practices up, but I'm not giving up my search for enlightenment. Here, the reason is that because he was always thinking about the suffering of humanity. That compassion kept him going. That compassion allowed him, okay, to understand those 5 ascetics, to empathize with that disappointment. So he wasn't angry with them. Not only that, he wasn't angry with them. After his enlightenment, he would be walking all the way to where they were to share what he had discovered. Suppose in your life, if somebody has really disappointed you, you wouldn't want to hear the name of that person again, let alone sharing something with that person. Why is that? Because our compassion is not strong enough. We don't see the pain of that person. So the Buddha, even just before he became Buddha, he was quite mindful of the pain of disappointment of those friends. As a result, he wasn't angry with them. Instead, I think it gave him more impetus to work harder so that he could guide them and other people. So he became enlightened on his own. We heard that, okay, on the eve of enlightenment, the devil with his army attacked him. You can understand this psychologically. You can also understand this literally. I have written this article published early this year behind the British Library. It's about Buddhist cosmology. So I touch on this point. Psychologically, of course, when the army of the devil was attacking him, psychologically, he was about uprooting. It was about him uprooting anger, dormant anger. When we say dormant, it's something the seed of anger that exists deep down in our heart. Sometimes we are not even aware of it. It comes up, it becomes active only when it's triggered by something. Otherwise, it remains dormant, latent in our subconscious mind. But that subconscious habit would dominate whatever we think, we speak, our decision. So my favorite, my favorite point in the life of the Buddha, especially how he dealt with the situation, especially his emotion, when his 5 friends were leaving him. From there, he became enlightened. He continued to pursue his practice. And this is what we say. He gave up the asceticism. And also he gave up the luxurious life of a prince. The two are diametrically opposed to each other. A luxurious life where you went for anything luxurious, just to make yourself comfortable, just to enjoy yourself to the point of indulgence. But on the other hand, with asceticism, you deny yourself anything. We are told that sometimes he would eat just 1 grain of rice. So he came to a point through his own personal experience where he saw the 2 extremes are no good in the pursuit of happiness, in dealing with problem of suffering. And here he found the middle path under the Bodhi tree, a tree which still exists now. Maybe it's in its 5th or 6th generation. But the tree under which the Buddha was enlightened still stands there. He was meditating alone. And he discovered this middle path. The middle path is about knowing and experiencing the extremes and then avoiding them, walking the middle path. What everybody knows today, or many people know today, as mindfulness practice. This is part of the middle path, the middle path, the middle way. But it's not the only one. It's a very important one, not the only one. The middle path consists of intelligent development. I would include emotional development in that, but ethical development and meditation to calm the mind. Those 3 aspects integrating into one path. So sometimes we call this the Threefold Training. And the Buddha, he went through both extremes and also the middle path personally. So he insisted on empirical experience. If you admire the Buddha, the first thing you have to do is to put to test what he has discussed, what he has left behind. If you get angry, try to put to test, okay, like mindfulness, like breathing, like compassion, like looking at anger as as a universal and common experience of the whole world. Okay, try to experience it yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't understand the Buddha. So the Buddha as a human being, making human effort, through human effort, what he confirmed is that as a human being, we can do it. Human world has a lot of problems. You can talk about COVID-19, you can talk about how some people take advantage of it. You can say some people become more compassionate towards it. Some people just politicize the pandemic. And you can also see more the inequality among the people during this pandemic. Whatever is happening around us, if we are to look at the Buddha and use his teaching and see if it could work, first we need to know ourselves, because Prince Siddhartha of the Buddha, the first thing he did was to try to know himself, self-awareness. You can say in the end, self-awakening. We need to be awakened to our emotional state. And the second thing is to be aware of other people's pain and joy, their situation. We can call this social awareness. These are the two kinds of awareness that the Buddha developed, okay, and then he reached the peak during his enlightenment. He confirmed his experience by checking out other people's experiences. And he also looked at other people's experiences through his own. Then he came to see that we are all just we have so much in common, and by focusing on common humanity, common human experiences, we can develop ourselves, and also with that capacity, we can help other people instead of withdrawing to our own self during this COVID-19, the corona pandemic. We can do something. We can do something. You see, in the face of suffering, the Buddha, or as Bodhisattva, he did everything he could. He did everything he could. So if we are inspired by the Buddha, we have to think of the problem facing the whole human world. And one step further, we should see what we can do. I think I have spoken long enough. If you have any question, I would be happy to take them. Yeah, so who is Desmond or Odin, who is going to help me with the question? Oh, Marlon.
Hi. So if anyone can please send in your questions as a message in the chat. Thank you.
You can ask anything about what I have said or what I have not said. I tried my best to entertain your question. If you have no question, then we see each other tomorrow.
Sorry. I have one question here. How can we be compassionate to very inconsiderate people?
Oh, very good question. Thank you. How can we be compassionate towards inconsiderate people? The focus of compassion is pain. For someone who is inconsiderate, okay, they also have pain. You need to try to relate to that pain. Someone who behaves that way, without sympathy, without empathy, without consideration towards other people, they may have some sort of pain in their mind. What we can see is their inability to relate to other people, to their surrounding, to their environment. So not very good connection with their environment. If they are in that situation, if something uncomfortable happens, they would personalize it straight away. If they personalize their own problem, meaning they just retreat, they just withdraw from the society whenever they have any problem. So maybe because of fear, maybe because of inability to relate to other people, that insensitivity, that in itself qualifies as pain. And if we can look at that as pain, okay, then you would have an opportunity to feel compassion for that person. More questions?
Yes. So following on from that, someone asks, how can we grow compassion within ourselves?
Oh. Can I just give you a very simple example? When you get, when you are hungry and you're about to make your lunch, to prepare your lunch, make sandwiches or to cook, okay, you can cook. But before you start cooking, can you give yourself 1 minute, just sit down? Okay, maybe in your kitchen, maybe in your dining, just give yourself 1 minute, exactly 60 seconds, and observe that hunger. This hunger repeats itself a few times a day. Morning, during daytime, lunchtime. I think this is your lunchtime in the UK. Maybe your breakfast time in America, and supper time in Asia. So if you get hungry, instead of go and grab food straight away, just observe that hunger for 1 minute. And look at the nature of this body. This body always demands food. Because without that food, this body cannot survive. And we have to repeat this ritual. I use the word ritual of eating, many times a day. So you can use this as point of compassion, feel compassion for your body. More than eating, you do more drinking. This is hot water. I don't drink tea, I don't drink it, but I take a lot of water and hot water. When I'm thirsty, instead of, grabbing a glass of water straight away, if I give myself half a minute or maybe a minute, seeing the nature of this body requires the intake of water, okay, all the time. And with that, you can develop compassion for yourself. Of course, you can also focus on emotion. When you're anxious about your job, when you're anxious about the COVID-19, when you're anxious about your safety, when you have to go out of your house, just look at your anxiety. And at that moment, feel compassionate for yourself. Why? Because you are suffering from anxiety. So to develop compassion, it's important to use the word suffering or pain, which is a word which is very central to the way the Buddha looked at the world. To the extent that if we talk about self-compassion, to the extent that, okay, our physical body is so helpless without water, so helpless without food. There is no substitution of food, no substitution of water. We just have to have it. Otherwise, this physical body is so helpless. If we think that way, if we look at that way, even taking soft drink or preparing meal or having a meal during the day, it's all compassion practice, it's all the Buddha's practice, it's all middle way practice. I hope it's not very difficult.
Thank you. Someone asks, actually a few people have asked about this. How can we help others with anxiety and uncertainty? And how can we help ourselves with anxiety and uncertainty?
The first thing is to recognize it mindfully. Okay, this is uncertainty. To recognize it. To recognize it without judging good or bad. The first thing is to look into our heart and to feel that anxiety mindfully. So we call this to recognize it, to accept it. When we say to accept it, it doesn't mean to be passive about it. It's just about to calm the mind. In today, in neurological terms, is to calm the brain also. To calm the brain. Because when we feel anxious, it's our right brain that is more active. But when we accept it, the acceptance, mindfulness, is associated with the left brain. So that's to calm down. To calm down so that we don't unnecessarily top up the anxiety. So that the subconscious mind doesn't go into an automatic machine, repeating it, topping it on. So the first thing is to recognize that. Then once we have recognized that, we are at a crossroad. we can turn right or left. One thing is when we turn right, that is to blame ourselves. Wow, I should have done that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have this anxiety. That sort of thing. To blame yourself. But to turn left is not to blame yourself, but to be kind to yourself. Well, this is a difficult time. I need some kindness towards myself to go through this. Okay, so first is called attention. That's mindfulness recognition. The second one is attitude. That attitude is compassionate attitude. So attention and attitude, 2A. If you hold these two value, then you can deal with your anxiety. And this can be applied to other people also. Then how do we recognize other people's anxiety if they themselves don't recognize it? Of course, the first thing is that to talk to them, to let them speak, and we listen to them non-judgmentally. Don't blame them. Just listen to them with empathy. This empathy is an exercise that we need to develop. We all have this nature, the nature of empathy, but it wouldn't become active if we don't practice it, because we have more distraction to pull us to other directions. So deep listening or non-judgmental listening or empathetic listening towards the anxiety of other people is very good. Sometimes whenever we listen to their problem, we can't help but be judgmental. You shouldn't be like this, you shouldn't have done that, you're stupid, that sort of thing. We are tempted to be judgmental. That's part of self-protective mechanism. So without being judgmental, if we can listen to those people, then they would feel that there is at least someone who understands them, who empathizes with them. That will help them to calm down. They wouldn't feel totally alone anymore. Otherwise, they could feel alone, very lonely with their own problem, with their anxiety. So this is the recognition level. After that, compassion is that to think what I can do to help this person overcome his or her anxiety. To be thinking actively what we can do, to think about the solution. This is compassion. Otherwise, it's not compassion, it's just empathy. Empathy is to feel the pain of someone without thinking about how to help, to relieve their problem. So compassion necessarily involves practical solution.
Thank you, Bhante. I have someone who's asked, is there such a thing as righteous anger in Buddhism?
Righteous anger. I should say straight away, no. If I say yes, I will have to answer mercy killing and euthanasia and all those questions. When you see an injustice, okay, injustice, at that moment you're at a crossroad. One way is to get angry and confront the problem of injustice through anger. The other one is to feel compassionate, okay, towards those people who are being done injustice. And also actually to the people who cause injustice. So these two alternatives, they are so different. They're so different. When you become angry in Buddhist psychology, you have chosen a threat focus. You have chosen to focus on threat. Not every danger is a threat. We can, a threat means is fear inside us. It's the way we relate to that, the way we emotionally respond to this situation. Someone, okay, instead of anger, may choose to respond to that through compassion. Because anger hurts you, and anger is, it can get out of control, and it can block your reasoning faculty. You yourself can cause injustice to others, even though the original intention was to actually solve the problem of injustice. We can look at this way, okay? We can read the history of the world. People who try to solve the problem of injustice ended up, okay, causing injustice to a certain section of the society. Because with anger, it's very easy for us to get into the mode of them and us. That is why we should replace anger with compassion. With compassion. Anger, when it flares up, maybe it energizes you. But how long before you fall with other people, with your own colleagues, with anyone who disagrees with you? With anger, you know, you are not going to be very tolerant. You're not going to be very patient. That is why anger is not justified. And the word anger in Pali is interesting. It's called dosa. A lot, I mean, a few terms, a few Pali terms for anger. But dosa is one of the most popular. Dosa means destructive emotion. So if one section of the society is prejudice against the other, and is obviously wrong, because of that injustice, do we go out of our home, our monastery, and destroy anything, the shops, the offices? Do we do that? No, we don't. But with anger, we might just be doing that. So anger is, no, we shouldn't use anger to justify injustice. The Buddha's way is to replace anger with compassion. And that would be a lot more powerful. That would be, compassion would be sustaining you in the fight against injustice of any kind. Okay, more question?
Yes, thank you. I have a question here. How does one find the balance between non-interference and not having karmic action or intention and trying to help?
We talk about motivation. I think the main question is motivation here. When you decide to do something, whether this is an interference or whether this is a helping hand, you cannot judge this on the basis of other people's opinion. And you have to judge it mainly on your own volition, on your own motivation. Whether you're motivated to do something because you identify with this person through your religious belief, nationality, party affiliation, organization, whatever. And we have to be very careful here because we can end up being prejudiced. So the safest motivation is the motivation that comes from compassion. Compassion is about helping other people, I have mentioned earlier. But here, in order to strengthen our compassion, we need to feel the pain of the people we disagree with. The pain of the people who belong to the other camp. Otherwise, our emotion, or our compassion is vulnerable. So for our compassion, to withstand the challenges in the course of helping other people, we need to feel the pain of everyone involved. And that's important. I know it's difficult in party politics and in a very partisan world. It is difficult, but it's not impossible. This practice is not that difficult at all. And it doesn't cost a lot. To be partisan is more costly. To be non-partisan, in the long run, economically is cheaper, emotionally is more rewarding. It's difficult only at the beginning when we are trying to relate to the pain of the people we disagree with. That's the only difficulty. And we just need to change the way we see them. Instead of seeing them as people causing us pain, we should see them as people who are in pain, therefore are causing us pain. So to stop them causing us pain is to stop them causing themselves pain. So we need to find a way to help them. I think we have run out of time. Do you think, Marlon?
Yes, I think so. But thank you so much. That was really great. And if I can just say one thing before, if you want to give any final words. If anyone who'd like to continue attending this course and would like to receive any materials that may come out or something like that, if you can please register for the course. And how you register is by sending an email with the subject line register, and then say you would like to register for this course and give your name. And the email is info@thebuddhistsociety.org. I'm putting it in the chat now. Oh, sorry. But I'll put this in the chat in a moment. So yes, thank you very much, Bhante. This was really wonderful. And yeah, if you have any final words for this session.
I just like to draw your attention that I focus on the Buddha being a human being, experience a human life, and promotes or achieve everything through human effort. Thank you.